Welcome! NOAA has just released its May of 2020 Global Climate Report, and this video is a summary of that report. May turns out to be the warmest May on record. It actually tied with May of 2016, which is remarkable in and of itself. May of 2016 was the peak at one of the strongest El Niños on record, which is a warming trend in the Eastern Pacific. So now we have months that are what's called ENSO neutral, i.e. they're neither El Niño or La Niña, and they're tying months that were at the peak of a very strong El Niño. The average temperature over land was the warmest on record at 1.4 degrees centigrade above the 20th century average. Oceans were 0.8 degrees centigrade above the 20th century average and were in second place. It was the warmest May on record in the Northern Hemisphere and the sixth warmest May in the Southern Hemisphere. So overall, that means we've had 425 consecutive months with temperatures above the 20th century average. Let's take a look at year-to-date temperatures. 2020 so far is running only second to 2016 in its year-to-date temperature. If it outperforms 2016 for the remaining part of the year, which is possible, it could actually become the warmest year on record. Well, let's see how those temperatures are distributed around the globe. Here we have a picture showing the departure from the long-term average for various areas of the globe. And this departure is measured in degrees centigrade. Dark blue is more than 5 degrees centigrade below average. Dark red is more than 5 degrees centigrade above average. You can see there are several areas of cool weather: the eastern United States and Canada, Central Europe, northern India, and Australia. But there are far more areas of high temperatures, such as the western United States, Western Europe, most of Africa, the Middle East. A particular hotspot persists in Siberia and also China. Over in the Eastern Pacific, we see that there is much more cool water in the critical area for determining whether we have an El Niño or La Niña. That would imply that we're heading towards a La Niña later in the year. Now, the last map is a very useful map, but it doesn't tell you whether any of those departures from average are record or not. This type of map does. It's called a percentiles map. Here, record cold is depicted by dark blue. Record warm is depicted by dark red. Note, there are no record cold pixels on this map and only one much cooler than average pixel noted, and that's in India. And that indicates that the globe is still warming rapidly. This figure shows the ranking of each month over the last 6 years. You can see that May of 2020 is ranked number 1 and tied with May of 2016. The thing to note here is that since June of 2019, every single month has either been ranked as the hottest or the second hottest on record. This is very similar to the situation in 2015 to 2016. The only difference was that that earlier time period was during a very strong El Niño, and this one is during ENSO neutral conditions. This puts 2020 in the running to become the second warmest year on record. But note that 2016 cooled off towards the end of the year. Now, if 2020 doesn't do that, then it may well supplant 2016 as the warmest year on record. I'm still guessing it's going to be the second warmest, but we'll see at the end of the year. Up until now, we've been dealing with temperature measurements made at the surface of the Earth. Now let's take a look at the upper atmosphere. We'll start with the lower troposphere, and we use the data from two different organizations, the University of Alabama Huntsville and the Remote Sensing Systems. UAH says it was the second warmest May on record, RSS says it was the warmest May on record, and the overall trend for both sets of data is about an increase of 0.15 degrees centigrade per decade. Mid-troposphere, which is a bit higher in the atmosphere, about 7 kilometers up, both UAH and RSS ranked it as the second warmest, with an overall trend of about 0.1 degrees centigrade per decade. Now the oddball layer of the atmosphere, the stratosphere, UAH reckoned it was the 6th warmest, RSS the 10th warmest, and they have an overall cooling rate of 0.2 degrees centigrade per decade. Next, let's take a look at the Northern Hemisphere sea ice. That was the 4th lowest recorded so far, and all 4 of those years have occurred in the last 5 years. This gives us 19 consecutive years where the northern sea ice has been below average. Next, let's take a look at the sea ice around Antarctica. This was the 15th lowest total of sea ice on record, and the 5th consecutive year with below average sea ice in Antarctica. The key component to climate analysis is the amount of carbon dioxide there is in the atmosphere, and that has reached a new all-time high in May at 417.07 parts per million. That's an increase of 2.42 parts per million over this time last year, and probably represents the highest level of carbon dioxide in the last 20 million years. Finally, let's take a look at the status of El Niño, La Niña. You may recall that last month the models were very scattered, so it was hard to tell what was going on. There's a little bit more resolution in this. Overall, we're currently in ENSO neutral conditions, i.e. we're neither in an El Niño nor a La Niña. But the trend towards the end of the year seems to be towards a cooling trend, or maybe even into a weak La Niña. And if that is the case, I would expect global temperatures towards the end of the year to slip a little from where they are now. So in summary then, May of 2020 was the warmest May on record, tying with 2016. That means the last 12 months have either been the warmest or the second warmest months on record. That puts 2020 on a pace to be the second warmest year on record, and potentially could become the warmest year on record. That would give us 7 record years in a row. ENSO is in neutral conditions. ENSO neutral conditions prevail, and that means that we have neither an El Niño or a La Niña, although the trend seems to be towards a weak La Niña at the moment. But it should remain ENSO neutral at least through the summer of this year. So until next time, stay safe and goodbye.